in Israel.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
were talking about it. How do you find it, Larry, the way that these people are getting serious about what's going on?
Yeah, no, look, it's the truth. Israel is acting like an entitled, spoiled child, and that they can say anything they want, do anything they want to Donald Trump with no repercussions. And Trump, I think, is finally getting fed up with it and said, "Hey, I don't have to put up with this." So, um, and that's really it's going to that was the veiled threat. But then in a private conversation, they can make the threat quite direct that, if you do not cooperate with us, if you do not pull your troops out of southern Lebanon, if you don't stop attacking, we're going to pull all support. Already, I know that what's called the Air Combatant Command for Central Command is working frantically right now to start bringing all of the U.S. aircraft that deployed to Jordan and to Israel and to any other bases in the Gulf. They're pulling them all back. So as those start to leave, that's going to also drive home the message to Israel that you're on your own. Or we're not. If you want to continue starting a fight, go ahead, start a fight, but we're not with you.
Larry, your understanding of, because it's not JD Vance, it's about Donald Trump himself as well. He came out, said, you're going to go after Hezbollah. You're not going to bomb the building, the whole apartment building, killing everybody just to get one of two commanders or forces of Hezbollah.
Right.
Where were they before? Are they getting more reports, or Donald Trump somehow was isolated before, didn't know what's going on, or he's changing his sort of rhetoric?
No. I mean, they knew what was going on before. They just decided to distance themselves from Israel. So it's real simple. And the Israelis, frankly, I think, are shocked by this. They didn't expect this. They go, "Hey, we thought we were buddies." Nope, not anymore. That party's over.
Yeah. It's not about Israel, Larry. They're using their podcasters in the United States, the Zionist podcaster, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro. You go, Ted Cruz. You see Ted Cruz coming out and talking, going against the MOU. By the way, MOU doesn't mean anything,
Right. Right.
to be honest.
Yeah, well,
But the reaction is too harsh, in my opinion.
Well, nobody's listening to them anymore anyway. I mean, Levin's audience is shrinking. Ben Shapiro's audience has shrunk. And candidly, I think some of that went into the calculations of Donald Trump, recognizing these guys aren't all that popular after all, and so we can probably they're going to have to pay attention to us more, or we can ignore them because it's not like they got a giant audience.
JD Vance said 2/3 of the weapons they have used. He basically talking about the missiles they use on their fighter jets and the interceptors came from the United States. It means came from the United States during the war or before the war, or he's
Well, I think
talking about
I think it doesn't matter. I mean, it's just he's saying that total U.S. support. Two-thirds of what Israel uses comes from the United States. Just leave it. I think leave it at that.
But my understanding is all of them come from the United States. I'm talking about. Are they producing interceptors? Are they producing?
Yeah, they produce David Sling and the Iron Dome. Yeah, I mean, Israel does produce
Patriot Pack 3.
But that's what JD Vance was referring to. If you total up all of the armaments that the Israelis are using, then he's saying 2/3 of those were coming from the United States. But that means still Israel was building or providing 1/3 for itself.
You know what's so amazing about what's going on right now is not only the Republicans who are, totally those people who are Zionists, but you see Democrats are coming out against the deal. They were criticizing Donald Trump for this war, and right now they're attacking him because he's making some sort of deal.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, again, it's not a surprise. They're also bought and paid for by Israel. Most members of Congress are taking money from AIPAC. One of the few who didn't was Thomas Massey, and that lesson has been learned by some other members. They figure, well, don't go up against the Israeli dollars. But the public opinion is changing, and at some point, I think Israel recognizes, I would say, the writings on the wall. They don't have a strong future in the United States with the American public.
I think something huge is happening, Larry, in the United States vis-a-vis Israel and what's going on, considering the relationship between the United States and Israel. Because if I were to mention the most Zionist, the Secretary of State of the United States, I would say Antony Blinken and Hillary Clinton. The most Zionist, or Mark Pompeo, by the way, would be one of them. And I have never thought that one day we're going to hear this sort of, objection on the part of, for example, Hillary Clinton when it comes to Israel. And she said, I don't know if you saw the latest interview she had, she's just criticizing the way Israel is behaving.
You're right.
And
right.
It's something new. When she goes that far, it means a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Here is what she said, Larry.
Well, you're absolutely right. When I was secretary, it was a constant, theme by Netanyahu and his then government, the then defense minister, Ehud Barak, the former prime minister. It was relentless. It was a constant push. I remember...
what would he say to you?
What?
What would he say to you?
He would basically say, you need to support us in attacking Iran. And back then, this was, 2009 to the end of 2012, we had more capacity than Israel did on several fronts to do that. And so there was a constant argument that we would have. And I remember one day, I was on the phone for hours with Ehud, with Bibi, with others, and they would say things like, our planes are on the tarmac. And I'd say, well, good luck. I mean, great. Why are you doing this?
Where else would planes be other than in the air?
But on the tarmac, ready to take off. Okay. Yes. Well, no, they'd be in the hangar, but they were on the tarmac. And you would say things.
You're saying you were being played
all the time, all the time. I mean,
by an ally that receives an enormous amount of aid.
Well, of course. And look, Bibi's been obsessed.
Yeah, this is. I think these sort of interviews are huge when you remember the history of these people and the way they were talking about Israel. Just 1 month ago or 2 months ago, I listened to one of her interviews. She was totally supporting Israel. She wasn't, she didn't want to mention genocide, what is going on in Gaza is genocide or something. Right now, she's going against Israel and the way Israel is behaving. I think they somehow perceive how serious was the war against Iran in the West Asia. That's why they're coming out and saying, this is the end. Are you going to be trapped, or you're going to save yourself from what Benjamin Netanyahu or Israel wants you to do?
Yeah, I mean, it appears to be what she's saying. It's significant, but I don't think it's that significant simply because it's not going to be widely heard. People like you and me that follow the news closely, we'll say, oh man, that's huge. But the average person out there, still, they won't pay attention to her. But I think it has to be taken as there is a shift. But it's still not, it's not as important a shift as needs to take place, because again, you're seeing that there's a lot of, Trump is coming under a lot of criticism, bipartisan criticism, for striking this deal with Iran. So that if it was, if he's actually being celebrated, that would say that that actually the worm has turned against Iran, but it's not the case. It's almost like, why are we abandoning our closest ally? That kind of thing.
But what is the main sources? What is the main reason of this criticism, in your opinion? Nothing has happened so far. There is a document out there, and the only thing that has happened last night was at midnight they lifted the sanction on Iranian oil and energy sector, which they were selling it before this war started.
Yeah. But I'm not sure I'm following who was saying what?
Yeah, what is the main reason for these people to go after the Trump administration? You say that
the main reason is they think they're abandoning Israel. These politicians who've been bought and paid for by Israel see this as abandoning and betraying Israel. That's not complicated, dude.
What do they want?
What do you mean? What do they?
Administration for Israel. What is the solution then? Or do they really want to get back to war to start a new round of war?
They don't have. Why do you think they'd have a solution? And why do you think that they're thinking rationally about this? I mean, can you give me any evidence that they've ever thought that, show that they've thought this through and have a coherent thought? No, it's just simplistic nonsense. I see people, we should have gone in on the ground. Okay, I mean, even guys with military experience, and you go, how the hell is that? Explain that one to me. Explain. It's like there was just a report I got a friend sent me a report saying that the Kurds have they're launched an invasion into northern Iran, and and I'm thinking, that's got to be a bogus report, number one, because to do that, the Kurds would have to have a logistics chain. And I mean, we're talking a lot. If they're going to invade Iran with any kind of force at all, you've got to have a way to get them resupplied with food, with water, with ammunition. And you need to have a medical evacuation plan that's able to work if this is large scale. There's no way in hell they've got that. Absolutely no. And can they launch a raid and attack a town or village on the border of Iran? Sure. But to try to actually come in and occupy territory in Iran and keep it, they'll be wiped out within a day or two. They simply cannot. They don't have the ability to sustain themselves because it requires a lot of logistics behind it. And that's what these people don't understand. Most people just, they're the ones who think that the chicken that they eat at, they go buy a chicken at the local grocery store and they think that's how the chicken actually exists. They don't realize it was once a living bird walking around and it had to be slaughtered and then cut up and then butchered in a way so they can finally put it into a plastic styrofoam wrapper and put it in a freezer.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking this, Larry, is that let's assume let's assume Donald Trump doesn't come out with this memorandum of understanding. What is the alternative for them?
Well, wait, it's already out. So what do you mean that it would not come out with it?
I would say because these people who are against MOU, so what is the alternative for that, for MOU, for these people?
Well, why do you think that they would assume there's an alternative?
So staying in the fight, it means that Donald Trump said it. I think the main reason was mentioned yesterday by Donald Trump that we are 4 weeks away from, the oil reserves, 4 weeks away to be totally depleted.
Right.
So this is the main reason. So what is? Is there any sort of communication between the Trump administration and these people?
again, you're thinking, you keep talking as if these people are rational people, that they're logical, that they're saying that they're sitting there and weighing the facts and then go, oh heavens, yeah, we don't have the military assets to do this. And if we continue down this course of action, we're going to face an economic catastrophe. Yeah, we've got to move away from the military side and go towards trying to fix the economic side. They're not thinking that way. So I'm saying don't assume that they're thinking that way, because they're not. They're doing just the opposite. And, they don't think there's any consequences to be had here. That's what's sort of truly shocking about all of this.
Yeah. Fox News, by the way, is playing totally in the hand of the Israelis right now. They're somehow managing.
Yeah. Are you surprised by that?
No, at all.
Yeah,
but they were supporting Donald Trump.
I mean, good God, it's been that way for 26 years. So that's like being surprised and, God, I was looking at my male dog and he was licking his balls. Yeah, that's what male dogs do. Okay.
Do you think Israel would go, would go to are they going to do something stupid in your opinion? Because two things I think recently we've learned from Laura Loomer and Naftali Bennett in Israel. Both of them were talking about 9/11 is coming to the United States. Islam is going to do some sort of operation in the United States. That can totally change the whole situation with what's going on in the West Asia. A false flag, something like that.
Okay, and why would, quote, Islam do that in the United States?
I don't know. Why are they on the border of Iran in Iraqi Kurdistan? The new group is ISIS, was formed by the British, by French. They are at the border of Iran in Iraqi Kurdistan.
Right.
They just 2 weeks ago they came to power. They said, we are here. We want to invade Iran. The same people can do something.
Yeah, good. Let them invade. How do they? Do you understand what it takes to sustain an invasion? I mean, that means you're moving forward in what? Walking or in vehicles? If they're in vehicles, they got to have gasoline or diesel to be refueled to keep going. Where are those fuel tanks coming from? Have they already pre-positioned and assembled those vehicles? There's no way that they could do that without Iran knowing about it, because Iran's got the Russian and Chinese intelligence showing them that. So that didn't happen. This is just more misinformation from the West to try to distract, frighten, whatever. But the Kurds do not have. Do the Kurds have the ability to launch attacks across the border into Iranian territory? Yes, but only what would be called a raid, just a temporary go in, kill some people, set some things on fire, and then run away. What we're talking about is, do they have the ability to go in with a say 5,000 men and occupy an area and defend it and prevent Iran from controlling that area? No, they do not have that ability. They're being trained by the CIA. That right away tells you that they don't have that ability. CIA has a very good track record of fucking these things up.
The perception on the part of Iranians, Larry, before coming to this live, I told you that Iranian supreme leader, he just issued a statement today saying that he didn't feel good about MOU. So he gave the permission to the Iranian president to sign it and see what would happen with the MOU. But basically, when he puts this sort of statement out, it means that he doesn't feel good, and it means that some part of the governments are not happy with what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure there is some division in Iran about it.
Yeah.
So the question: are they going to walk away from the agreement, or are they going to stick with the agreement? They'd be foolish to walk away from it now, because they've got the United States. they established 5 red lines, and those red lines were relief of sanctions, unfreeze assets, lift the blockade, acknowledge the ownership, the authority of Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, and end the fighting in Lebanon. So those are all conceded in that document. Now, the Israelis haven't stopped the attacks in southern Lebanon. So now it's a matter of, is Iran, once that agreement is signed again tomorrow, once they or put it into effect tomorrow, then Iran's in a position where it can launch attacks into southern Lebanon against Israeli positions to support Hezbollah. Because that agreement says it is now Iran's obligation to protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Lebanon. It says that in the first paragraph.
It seems last night Iran wanted to hit some targets in Israel. And so,
I'm not talking about hitting targets in Israel. I'm talking about hitting Israeli targets in Lebanon.
I don't know where I assume that they wanted to hit some targets in Israel, in northern part of Israel, but serious negotiations, serious talks are happening between the two sides that we're not aware of, in my opinion.
Correct.
Behind the scene. They're coordinating what's going on between Israel and Lebanon. That's why you see JD Vance coming out talking this way. Iran wanted to attack Israel last night, which could have been, the end of MOU and whatever is happening between the two sides.
Uh-huh.
Do you see that happening, the management happening in the United States between the United States and Israelis?
What do you mean the management?
Management to withdraw Israelis from Lebanon.
Well, all the United States can do is ask and then threaten, as JD Vance did, that we can pull off recall all of these planes and other assets we've deployed on your behalf if you don't comply. They could do that. We'll see if Trump does that. He's under now enormous pressure to back away, but it also looks like he was given enough warning the other day about what was coming economically that he had zero interest in facing that. And that's why he's insisted, okay, we got to get out of this.
Let's assume you're part of the Trump administration. What would you say to JD Vance or Donald Trump himself in order to manage the situation with Israel and manage the situation, by the way, in the United States, which we know is totally against the MOU?
I'd call Israel up and say, look, your troops need to be withdrawn by, 12 hours from now. And if they're not, we are going to immediately suspend aid and recall all of our assets, including the air defense assets that we've deployed to your country. You got to play, just play hardball that way.
Do you think that
will they do that? I don't know. We'll see. I can make the case that Trump would be disinclined to do that, but he's, it appears that the briefing he got over the weekend about the severe crisis that's going to unfold if they don't get the strait open and get oil flowing, that it's going to be a real problem. I don't think he was exaggerating that. I think he was being absolutely honest about it.
Then do you think the president has that sort of power?
What sort of power?
The call that you mentioned, calling Benjamin Netanyau and Israelis, you're going to do this unless I'm going to do that, and I'm going to punish you this way.
Mm-hmm.
Is that in the power of the president of the United States with the current conditions that we know what's going on in the United States and how Congress is supporting, by the way, the Israeli agenda?
I think Trump does have it in his power to do some of that. And then there's also the possibility that he'd get pushback from senators that they might even, try to impeach him. But again, I don't think that Donald Trump, well, he said it yesterday. We don't have to imagine. He said we're out of oil in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's That's why he's doing this. Someone got to him, got the message and said, okay, we've been lying to you. We've been convincing you that everything's okay, and it's not okay. We're facing an emergency situation if we don't get the Strait open and get oil start to flow. And so that's why he agreed to the Iranian position, not because he thought the Iranians were right. His balls are in a vice, and Israel doesn't have the leverage, the fear of the economic collapse of this economy. Because if that happens, Israel's screwed anyway, because the United States isn't going to have extra money to send to Israel.
Do you think instead of putting political pressure on Israelis, which we know is totally dependent on Congress, can the United States put some sort of economic pressure on Israel without, that? Because that, I think, purely is dependent on the Trump administration. It's less related to the Congress. Is that possible instead of going?
So what do you mean?
I would say putting some sort of, it's about Turkey, other countries who are somehow helping Israel in the whole process, saying, you do this, I'm going to ignore what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not, and Congress can do nothing about it.
Well, Congress has limited, it can act annually with appropriations and fail to provide money or, not appropriate money. But so the power really lies with Trump in terms of how to limit access to the aid and withdraw aid as he can. Now, Congress gets into the role in terms of during the appropriation process, but they can't really come in right now and mandate spending unless that money's already been appropriated for that activity.
I see the move of the Trump administration as though it's so, for them it seems so, it's so important, 2028, Larry. And it's all about the oil reserves. It's about the economy. It's about the stockpiles of the United States. These are two important factors, by the way, the economy and the stockpile. And the third factor would be 2028, which is so important for the administration.
Well, it may be too late. Trump's actions were primarily driven to allow oil to start flowing back through the Persian Gulf and to get that oil to basically get the 20% of oil that has been taken off the market back on the market. Now, the problem is, it is not like going to the faucet in your kitchen